Welcome back to Crit and Crit. I'm Axion,
I'm Sint.
and we are continuing flailing our faces against Mario Adventure. Well, my face at least. And
You did it!
continuing our discussion of The Snow Queen by Hans Christian Andersen. Finally got that done.
Now we get to discover what fresh hell awaits us.
Collect lots of coins, apparently. So, this is a math level. We apparently have to collect a certain number of coins to reach the ending.
Okay. How many do you need?
I don't know.
Well, you flew over several.
Oh, I'm gonna go back for those. I'm pretty sure the actual exit is back at the beginning. So I'm gonna have to double back anyway. Also, I was wondering if there were any further up.
Yeah, I hear there's 7 up. Hey.
Got it.
Yeah, timely that we're doing a math level, though, huh?
Yep. Today's episode, we are discussing why math makes you evil. Well, and science, but mostly math. At least in this story.
Well, the easy joke is, have you tried taking it? Because, I mean, that would make anybody evil, hey.
I was never great at math, and admittedly, not super great at science either growing up.
Math was not my best subject, but I was okay at it. However, I don't think it made me evil. I think studying history made me, quote, evil.
Ack!
Rip.
I thought I had it figured out. But yeah, I'll just get straight to my point. I grew up in a very strict, very cultish religion. And that religion was one that was particularly strongly hostile to science. Fast forward 30-some-odd years, here I am, no longer a member of said religion, and doing things on YouTube. And I'm reading a fairy tale where a kid gets a cursed shard of evil in his eye, and the first thing it does is make him obsessed with math.
I thought the first thing it did was make him a jerk.
Well, yes, but the obsession came right alongside that.
Okay, so gonna be honest here. When we made this episode list, I saw this and thought just, oh yeah, because emotions are usually associated with heat. It's where you get like hot-blooded and everything, and passion and stuff. And that, meanwhile, math and science are over in the no passion, only logic, cold end of things, because they're kind of, outcasts off in their own little world. So I didn't really read the religious implications into the math and science thing the way you did.
This is definitely something that has been influenced by my own upbringing and personal history, yes.
Yay, you win.
So, Andersen in this story, when he has Kai under the influence of the evil shard, the first thing that Kai does, other than just become an unpleasant person in general, is become obsessed with math and science. And particularly with an emphasis on the whole snowflake thing. And I can't say definitively what his intent was as a writer. But given how overtly spiritual so much of the story of Snow Queen is, and of most of Andersen's writings in general, I can't put it out of my mind that something similar to that was, if not his intended meaning, then something close to it. But either way, that was the immediate association that went through my head.
I'm gonna be a little stereotypical here. I kind of think the affiliation might have been, well, for one thing, symmetry. Since he's obsessed with fractals, he wants everything to be perfectly shaped with no room for flaws. But also, as far as stereotypes go, it has never been a common thing in fiction or in a lot of places ever to assume that the math nerds are going to have a lot of friends. So math could just have been one of those naturally isolating subjects, and that could have been what Andersen was going for. But Andersen also makes a very big deal about invoking the Bible throughout this, so there could very well be that link as well.
And that's why I reacted the way I did, was because due to that bit, it seemed that to be the very obvious intent. But
it could have been.
We are a literary analysis channel. Over-analyzing and coming up with our own deductions is what we do. So, even if that was not Andersen's original intent, it was the intent that I personally took away from the experience.
Well, there is another way to look at it as well.
Alright, go ahead.
Okay, so we're associating math with a lack of emotion, yes?
Mm-hmm.
Who is typically said to be better at math? Girls or boys?
I believe it's boys?
Yeah, you remember the math is hard Barbie incident?
No.
Okay, so nowadays, like, you know about the gender gap in STEM fields, right?
I do know about that, yes.
Yeah, so largely, like, elementary ages, boys and girls tend to do about the same. But at middle school, girls tend to be, for whatever reason, usually peer pressure or just societal expectations, discouraged from pursuing STEM fields. Like, they're not as encouraged to pursue science and math and things like that.
Right, yeah, this I did know.
So, yeah, so that's a pretty good tie-in as well. Kai is becoming more, quote, masculine because he's getting rid of his emotions that don't really benefit him in any way. And a lot of people do see emotions in general as feminine.
Right.
Apparently, the only acceptable emotion to have is anger or superiority, which is basically all Kai is left with when he has the shard in his eye. And his heart.
Yep. Especially
so you could also... Yeah, you could really make a case for looking at gender roles here in that sense. When you excise emotion from yourself, you think you're cutting off the weak and useless femininity, as people like to look at it, especially back in this era. But you're actually cutting off your humanity. Because, big surprise, doesn't matter what kind of chromosomes you have, if you're a person, you still have feelings.
Yep, or how you identify.
Yeah, and it doesn't, matter how you feel about that. You have feelings. If you do not act on them, if you suppress them, it tends to get very unhealthy. Things tend to get pent up. and you lash out in unexpected ways. It's not a good idea to excise yourself from feeling emotion. It's not unnatural to feel emotion.
And a lot of harm has come throughout the world over the ages from people trying to both suppress their own emotions and expect the suppression of emotions from others.
Yep. And again, it happens to Kai in this case because of an accident. I know, way too many people who try to do this on purpose. It's really depressing. It's actually also really funny and timely because this is coming up a lot. Coming up in class right now because we're reading Macbeth. And Macbeth trying to put aside his emotions and his remorse basically causes every problem in the entire play. So, yeah, there is absolutely something to be said about the danger of getting rid of emotions just to get something done and relying purely on quote-unquote logic. Especially because if you're not the clearest thinker, how do you know your logic is actually working? You have only your feelings on that subject to go on, and in that case, you're not working with logic.
I guess that's why they call it irony.
Yeah, it's just like, I feel like I'm the most logical person in the world. I think I'm the most logical, but do you have proof? No, you don't, which means you're going off of a gut feeling, which means you're not being very logical. You're, in fact, being very emotional, and a lot of people will get very emotional if you call them on this.
Yep.
But, yeah, so I can absolutely see where you were coming from with we're using math as evil, but I kind of see this math as, like, since math itself does not require emotional input or any connection. Like, even science has a bit more emotional reaction because you generally feel a certain way about how an experiment's going to go. I think it's just more, it's removed from emotion, and the whole point is about the role of emotions with engaging in our basic humanity. And even without the presence of logic and mathematics, it is possible for us to set aside emotion for an ulterior motive. Like, as you said, people have their feelings hurt because science doesn't tell them what they want, so they lash out and ignore it. And that tends to cause as many problems. Like, it's not all one or the other. You need a balance of both. Like, there's a whole bunch these days about facts don't care about your feelings, and they don't, but you know what does matter? How you present those facts. So, you need to balance it. Yep. I guess is just the roundabout way I need to get
moderation,
to. Like, I don't think
moderation in most things.
Yeah, like, I don't think Gerda has the right solution in going around and literally trusting everybody up to and including the robbers to do the right thing for her. It works out for her because she's the heroine of a fairy tale, but it could have very easily gone very wrong. And Kai's even worse off, but neither of them is at their best when they're separate. They're happiest and feel the most complete when they're together. Logic and emotion work together. But it's interesting with the cold and hot associations. So as mentioned before, hot-blooded is kind of a thing that is only emotional. There is no room for logic with being hot-blooded. You're very passionate about everything, and you feel things very, very strongly, and you're very much, go get them, and so on and so forth. So that is the exact opposite of Kai, and honestly, even Gerda doesn't really fit into that.
Yep, Gerda has a very neutral personality.
Yep, which is funny, because like you'd think they'd be much more opposites, but it's fine. But yeah, so cold has a connotation of isolation, and it's interesting that we have our evil Snow Queen and everything associated with cold, because if we're going to be looking at the Christian tradition, which Andersen insists we do because he puts the Bible in it every 5 minutes, typically hell is associated with heat, flame, fire, and brimstone. So it's not actually all that often you get the cold association with it. So I just thought that was a neat note.
It is a rare incident, but not an unprecedented one. After all,
Yeah.
We all well know of Dante's association with Hell is that its lowest levels are frozen solid.
Dante's association with Hell is everyone I don't like is there.
That too. But just sticking to the imagery, he has the lowest regions of Hell are ice. Only the uppermost regions are associated with heat and with other things, but your lakes of fire and brimstone and fiery pits and all that, those are the early levels of Hell, the lesser punishments. When you get to the really, really bad stuff, people are, like, frozen in pits and stuff like that. This is going to be a lot harder if I can't kill that thing.
Yep. Can I just point out the irony of this level for a second?
What
We're
part?
talking about the dangers of heat, or the dangers of cold, and how warmth and heat were necessary to melt things, and you're trying to kill the sun.
I just had really bad aim this time.
Yeah, I noticed.
But, to continue on the subject of the Christian tradition, this is also where the Snow Queen kind of changes from being... Early in the story, she's more kind of a fae trickster entity. This is the point in the story where she becomes Satan, making deals and promising the world to a child in exchange for an impossible task. And while that does still have fairy elements to it...
very fae to me.
I was about to say, while it does have fairy elements to it, because it's Andersen and because of the way he's written the story, I don't think you can miss, or at least you can't completely ignore, the possibility of a Satan analog interpretation because of the clear presence of that kind of overt temptation and the promise of offering you the whole world under your dominion. That's like one of Satan's things. I'm bad at these Koopa fights. And I don't know that happened. It seemed, at least to me when I was reading it, to be a very notable change in the Snow Queen's demeanor, that prior to that she had been just the very mercurial, very almost alien Fae Queen, but when we get to that section at the end where she's in absentia, she becomes something a little more recognizably Christian in origin, with a very strong Satan analog in a way that her depiction before didn't really have.
Yeah, I didn't really pick up on any shift like that, because, like, both times she kind of just seemed like, oh, you're cute, I guess I'll find something to do with you with regards to Kai. Like, I had the impression she was giving him puzzles because it entertained her to keep him busy. And, like, she didn't... if it was a Satan analog, I would have seen her, you know, like, exacting some sort of promise from him, which she never does. He's just there. What's he gonna do? Leave? Nope. So, with that in mind, I didn't really get the Satan vibe, because she's not really a temptation. She's just a force of nature that stands between him and Gerda being reunited. Satan would have more agency and be more of a temptation figure. I think.
And I think that's a fair interpretation.
It's like, if you're gonna have the devil, at least make him go down to Georgia.
There we go!
Yeah, I'm not really sure what else to add here.
I think that's a good time as any to go ahead and call this one.
Oh, I did have a question on Dante, though.
Yeah?
You said it's made of ice in the most innermost levels?
The lowest level is frozen over, yes?
Is it vanilla ice?
No. Why?
See you guys next time!
See you later.